The warm summer breeze carried the tantalizing aromas of freshly grilled meats and sizzling street food as I strolled through the bustling gourmet festival. My heart swelled with pride, knowing that my passion for promoting healthy eating habits had helped make this event a reality. Little did I know that this joyous occasion would soon take an unexpected turn, casting a dark shadow over the memories of my past. As I admired the vibrant array of local vendors showcasing their culinary creations, a familiar voice pierced through the lively chatter, sending a chill down my spine. "Well, if it isn't Lila, fancy meeting you here." I whirled around, my breath caught in my throat as I came face to face with Mark, my ex-husband, accompanied by his new wife, Elise. A sudden wave of emotions washed over me, a potent mix of anger, resentment, and an undeniable twinge of envy at the sight of their polished appearances and the air of affluence that surrounded them. "Mark, Elise," I managed to utter, mustering a forced smile. "It's been a while." "Indeed, it has," Elise chimed in, her perfectly manicured nails glistening in the sunlight. "It's so nice to see you managing to keep yourself busy with, well, whatever it is you do these days." Her thinly veiled condescension stung, but I refused to let her words diminish the sense of accomplishment I'd worked so hard to cultivate. Before I could respond, Mark intervened, his tone dripping with false concern. "Lila, you're looking well. I trust your little nutrition business is keeping you occupied?" I bristled at his dismissive remark, but years of emotional turmoil had taught me to keep my composure. "It's more than just a little business, Mark. My work has a real impact on people's lives. Something you never seem to grasp." An uncomfortable silence descended upon us, the festive ambience suddenly muted by the weight of our shared history. Mark's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, and I could sense the tension brewing beneath his carefully crafted facade. "Well, we mustn't keep you any longer," Elise interjected, her saccharine smile masking a deeper disdain. "I'm sure you have clients to attend to." With a curt nod, they turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me to grapple with the conflicting emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. As I stood there, surrounded by the joyous laughter and the mouth-watering scents that had once brought me such delight, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss, not for the man I had once loved, but for the naive, trusting woman I had been. As I walked away from the festival, my mind spiraled back to the fateful night that shattered my world. Mark's familiar silhouette appeared in the doorway, his face etched with guilt. "There's been an emergency at the hospital," he muttered, already halfway out the door before I could respond. This wasn't the first time he had been called away unexpectedly, and I had learned to accept the demands of his profession. But something felt different that night, a nagging sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake. Hours ticked by, and Mark's absence stretched longer than usual. Concern gave way to suspicion as I paced restlessly, unable to silence the doubts gnawing at the back of my mind. Finally, exhausted and desperate for answers, I decided to venture out and uncover the truth myself. The drive to the hospital was a blur, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel with a mixture of determination and dread. But as I approached the familiar entrance, a sinking feeling consumed me. Mark's car was nowhere to be found. Panic set in, and I found myself wandering aimlessly, searching for any clue that might explain his disappearance. That's when I saw it. A sleek silver sedan parked in a secluded corner of the lot, its tinted windows offering no insight into its occupants. Summoning every ounce of courage, I crept closer, my heart pounding in my ears, and then a sound that would haunt me for years to come, laughter, followed by the unmistakable rustle of clothing and the muffled murmurs of intimacy. The world around me seemed to freeze as realization dawned, shattering the illusion of the life I thought I knew. Paralyzed by shock and disbelief, I stumbled away from the scene, my vision blurred by a torrent of tears. Weeks turned into months, and Mark's lies only compounded, each explanation more flimsy than the last. And yet, I clung to the fading hope that the man I loved still existed beneath the web of deceit. But fate had other plans. One fateful evening, as I was sorting through the mail, an innocuous envelope caught my eye. Inside, a series of incriminating photographs, proof of Mark's infidelity, captured in excruciatingly vivid detail. And there she was, the woman I would come to know as Elise, her smug grin searing itself into my memory like a brand. The confrontation that followed was explosive, a maelstrom of accusations and denials that culminated in a bitter separation. Mark, ever the smooth operator, wasted no time parading his new trophy wife before the world, leaving me to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. As I stood amidst the bustling festival, the memories of that harrowing time came flooding back, each carefully constructed lie Mark had fed me, replaying in my mind like a twisted mantra. But this time, I refused to be the victim. This time, I would have my revenge. In the aftermath of my divorce, I found solace in the one thing that had always brought me joy: my work. Pouring my energy into building a thriving nutrition consulting business, I slowly began to heal the deep wounds left by Mark's betrayal. It was during this time of personal growth that I met Owen, a kind-hearted widower and elementary school teacher. Our paths crossed at a local health fair, where his genuine interest in my work and gentle demeanor immediately put me at ease. "I admire your passion for helping others," he remarked as we chatted over steaming cups of herbal tea. "It's so refreshing to encounter someone who truly cares about making a positive impact." Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I found myself laughing without the weight of past trauma holding me back. Owen's warm smile and genuine concern for my well-being were like a soothing balm on the scars left by Mark's deceit. As our friendship blossomed into something more, I couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between these two men. Where Mark had been consumed by ambition and a relentless pursuit of success, Owen embodied humility and a deep appreciation for the simple joys in life. "You know, Leela," he mused one evening as we strolled hand in hand through the park, "true wealth isn't measured by material possessions or status. It's found in the connections we forge, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind." His words resonated deeply within me, a testament to the profound shift in my priorities and values. No longer was I captivated by the allure of wealth and prestige. Instead, I found myself drawn to Owen's unwavering integrity and his genuine concern for the well-being of those around him. With each passing day, the specter of my past faded, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and a determination to embrace the second chance life had offered me. "You've been through so much," Owen remarked one night, his fingers gently caressing my cheek. "But your resilience and strength are an inspiration. I'm honored to be a part of your journey." As I gazed into his eyes, brimming with sincerity and understanding, I knew that this man represented everything I had been searching for: a partner who valued honesty, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds of trust. In that moment, I vowed to leave the ghosts of my past behind, to embrace the future with open arms, and to never again allow myself to be defined by the mistakes of others. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was truly free. Months after my chance encounter with Mark and Elise at the food festival, I found myself attending a charity gala hosted by our city's most prominent organizations. As I adjusted the sleek, navy blue dress Owen had surprised me with, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of nervous anticipation. "You're going to be amazing tonight," Owen whispered, placing a reassuring kiss on my cheek as we made our way into the elegantly decorated ballroom. Little did I know that this evening would mark a turning point, a pivotal moment where the karmic scales would begin to shift in my favor. As the event unfolded, I mingled with colleagues and community leaders, sharing insights into the work I was so passionate about. Owen beamed with pride, never missing an opportunity to sing my praises to anyone within earshot. It was during one such conversation that I caught a glimpse of Mark and Elise entering the room, their designer outfits and air of self-importance impossible to miss. A familiar pang of resentment tugged at my heart, but before I could dwell on it, Owen swept me into his arms. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" he announced, his voice ringing out with confidence. "I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge someone truly special." As the room fell silent, Owen turned to me, his eyes shining with adoration. "Lila, your unwavering dedication to improving the lives of others through your work has been an inspiration to us all. Tonight, we celebrate you and the countless lives you've touched." A thunderous applause erupted as Owen presented me with a beautiful crystal plaque inscribed with words of gratitude from the community. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth and admiration of my peers, I felt a surge of empowerment unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Mark and Elise, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and barely concealed disdain. It was as if the universe had conspired to shine a spotlight on my accomplishments, forcing them to confront the glaring contrast between my life and theirs. As the evening drew to a close, I couldn't help but savor the sweet taste of vindication. Owen had orchestrated the perfect scenario, subtly but effectively showcasing the depth of my impact while highlighting the shallowness of Mark and Elise's perceived superiority. On the drive home, I found myself reflecting on the twists and turns that had led me to this point. Once a victim of betrayal and emotional turmoil, I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and surrounded by those who truly valued me for who I was. And as for Mark and Elise, their presence at the gala had served as a stark reminder of the emptiness that lurked beneath their carefully curated facade, a hollow existence built on lies and superficial trappings. For the first time, I felt a sense of pity for them, realizing that no amount of wealth or status could compensate for the absence of genuine fulfillment and meaningful connections. As Owen's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining in a tender embrace, I knew that the path ahead would be one of triumph and personal growth, leaving the shadows of my past firmly in the rearview mirror. The charity gala had barely concluded when I found myself face to face with Mark and Elise once again. As Owen excused himself to grab us some refreshments, the tension in the air was palpable. "Well, well, if it isn't the guest of honor," Elise sneered, her perfectly painted lips curling into a condescending smirk. "I must say that little display earlier was quite impressive." Mark remained silent, his eyes narrowed as he regarded me with a mix of disdain and something else, a flicker of envy, perhaps. I steeled myself, determined not to let their petty jabs pierce my newfound confidence. "Elise, always a pleasure," I replied, my tone laced with sarcasm. "I'm glad you enjoyed the evening. It's all in service of a good cause, after all." Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she searched for a weakness to exploit. "Yes, well, we all have our hobbies, don't we?" she quipped. "Some choose to make a real difference, while others settle for playing nutritionist to the masses." The barb stung, but before I could respond, Owen reappeared by my side, his presence serving as a steadying force. "Mark, Elise," he greeted them warmly, his arm snaking around my waist in a protective embrace. "I hope you've been enjoying yourselves. Lila's work is truly inspiring, isn't it?" Elise opened her mouth to retort, but Owen cut her off with a disarming smile. "In fact, I've been considering getting more involved myself. Perhaps you could enlighten me on the inner workings of your business ventures, Mark." The shift in tone was subtle but unmistakable. Owen's words carried an undercurrent of veiled accusation, as if he possessed knowledge that extended far beyond the superficial realm of Mark's supposed success. Mark visibly tensed, his eyes darting between Owen and me, searching for any sign of weakness or vulnerability. But he found none, for in that moment I felt an overwhelming sense of empowerment, bolstered by Owen's unwavering support. "Yes, Mark, do tell us about your endeavors," I echoed, my voice steady and assured. "I'm sure we'd all love to hear about the sacrifices you've made to achieve your aspirations." The air grew thick with tension, charged with unspoken truths and barely concealed barbs. Elise's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in power dynamics, while Mark's carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing glimpses of the insecurity and guilt that festered beneath. In that moment, I knew that the tide had turned. No longer was I the one cowering in the shadows, haunted by the echoes of betrayal. Instead, I stood tall, emboldened by the knowledge that karma was slowly but surely exacting its due. As Mark and Elise beat a hasty retreat, their excuses falling flat, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction course through my veins. This was merely the beginning, a premonition of the reckoning that awaited them, a harbinger of the retribution they so richly deserved. Owen's hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with mine in a silent gesture of solidarity. "You're incredible, you know that?" he murmured, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and admiration. And in that moment, surrounded by the echoes of our hard-won victory, I knew that the path ahead would be one paved with redemption and the sweet taste of long-awaited justice. Weeks after the charity gala, I found myself standing alongside Mark at a prominent community health conference. As we awaited our turn to speak on the panel, the tension between us was thicker than the humid summer air. Owen, ever the supportive partner, sat in the front row, his eyes shining with pride as he watched me prepare to take the stage. Little did Mark know, Owen had a few surprises up his sleeve, surprises that would soon unravel the carefully crafted facade that Mark had spent years constructing. As I took my seat behind the sleek podium, my confidence soared, fueled by the knowledge that Owen had orchestrated a powerful alliance with one of the event's major sponsors. The stage was set for Mark's downfall, and I could hardly contain my anticipation. Mark's speech was a masterclass in self-aggrandizement, filled with grandiose claims and thinly veiled boasts about his supposed contributions to the medical field. I watched with a mixture of amusement and disgust as he basked in the fleeting admiration of the audience, oblivious to the impending storm brewing on the horizon. When my turn came, I rose to the podium with a newfound confidence, my words carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom and a steadfast commitment to truth. As I spoke of the transformative power of nutrition and the importance of community outreach, I could see Mark's expression shift, his bravado slowly giving way to a flicker of unease. But the true coup de grace came when Owen took the stage, his presence commanding an air of authority that caught even me by surprise. With a few well-chosen words, he revealed his connection to the event's major sponsor, a prestigious health initiative, and announced his intention to collaborate closely with my endeavors. The impact was immediate and palpable. Suddenly, my credibility and professional standing were elevated to new heights, casting a shadow over Mark's carefully cultivated image. And as if on cue, Elise's face contorted into a mask of barely concealed rage, her eyes burning with envy and resentment. It was in that moment of triumph that Elise made her fatal mistake. Rising from her seat, she attempted to undermine my speech with a barrage of snide remarks and thinly veiled insults. But her words fell flat, and instead of diminishing my accomplishments, she only succeeded in exposing her own deceitful nature to the entire audience. As whispers and gasps of disbelief rippled through the crowd, Elise's true colors were laid bare for all to see, a desperate, vindictive woman willing to stoop to any depths to maintain her illusion of superiority. And in that moment, the karmic scales tipped inexorably in my favor. Mark, paralyzed by the unfolding spectacle, could only watch in horror as his once powerful facade crumbled before his eyes. The audience that had once hung on his every word now regarded him with a mixture of pity and disdain, their respect eroded by the harsh light of truth. As the conference drew to a close, I found myself surrounded by well-wishers and newfound allies, each one eager to congratulate me on my triumph and distance themselves from the toxicity that had enveloped Mark and Elise. And in the midst of it all, Owen stood by my side, his arm draped around my shoulders, in a silent declaration of solidarity and unwavering support. "You did it," he murmured, his eyes shining with pride. "You exposed them for who they truly are." And in that moment, I knew that the path to redemption had been paved, the karmic scales finally balancing in my favor after years of suffering and betrayal. The aftermath of the community conference was a whirlwind of congratulations and newfound alliances, but the true reckoning was yet to come. As Owen and I made our way to the after-party, arm in arm, I could sense the palpable tension in the air. Mark and Elise were already there, huddled in a corner with a few of their remaining allies, their expressions a mixture of barely concealed rage and desperation. As our eyes met, Elise's lips curled into a snarl, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the stem of her wine glass. But before she could launch into another tirade of insults and accusations, a voice rang out from across the room, cutting through the din like a knife. "Mark, is it true?" The question came from a mild-mannered colleague of Mark's, a man whose quiet demeanor had always made him fade into the background. But tonight, his eyes burned with a newfound intensity, fueled by the revelations that had unfolded during the conference. Mark's face paled as he turned to face the man, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "Is it true that you've been falsifying patient records?" the man pressed, his voice steadily rising. That you've been prioritizing your own financial gain over the well-being of those you've sworn to protect? A hush fell over the room as the weight of the accusation sank in. Suddenly, the whispers and rumors that had swirled around Mark's unethical practices crystallized into a damning reality, laid bare for all to see. Elise's perfectly composed mask began to crack, her eyes darting frantically between Mark and the growing crowd of onlookers. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and a torrent of long-repressed truths came surging forth. One by one, colleagues and former associates stepped forward, their voices rising in a chorus of condemnation. Stories of Mark's lies, his manipulations, and his callous disregard for the well-being of others echoed through the room, each revelation more damning than the last. And at the center of it all stood Owen, his quiet presence a beacon of integrity amidst the chaos. With a few carefully chosen words, he connected the dots between Mark's professional misdeeds and his personal betrayals, painting a vivid picture of a man consumed by greed and ambition. As the night wore on, the walls seemed to close in around Mark and Elise, their once formidable empire crumbling under the weight of their own deceit. Colleagues who had once fawned over them now turned their backs, their admiration replaced by scorn and disgust. And through it all, I stood tall, my hand clasped firmly in Owen's, a silent witness to the poetic justice unfolding before my eyes. For years, I had been the victim, cowering in the shadows of Mark's lies and Elise's cruelty. But now the tables had turned, and I basked in the sweet taste of long-awaited retribution. As the night drew to a close, and the last of Mark's supporters slunk away in defeat, I found myself surrounded by a sea of friendly faces, colleagues, community leaders, and newfound allies who had witnessed my triumph and rallied to my side. And in the midst of it all, Owen pulled me close, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and admiration. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You stood your ground, and the truth prevailed." In that moment I knew that the path to redemption had been forged, paved with the remnants of Mark and Elise's shattered facade. The scales of karma had finally balanced, and a new chapter of my life was just beginning. The soft glow of candlelight danced across the intimate confines of the cozy restaurant, casting warm hues over the faces of the small gathering. Owen's hand found mine beneath the tablecloth, his fingers intertwining with my own as I surveyed the smiling faces of those who had stood by me through the tumultuous journey. As glasses clinked and laughter filled the air, I couldn't help but reflect on the winding path that had led me here. A path paved with heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. "A toast," Owen announced, rising to his feet and raising his glass, "to new beginnings and the strength to overcome adversity." A chorus of cheers erupted, echoing through the dimly lit space as we celebrated not just my personal triumph, but the resilience of the human spirit itself. In the aftermath of the conference, the dominoes of Mark and Elise's downfall had continued to fall, one after another. Professional censures, legal battles, and a steadily dwindling circle of allies had left them isolated and disgraced, their once formidable reputations in tatters. But tonight wasn't about them. It was about embracing the future and the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. As the evening wore on, conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the clinking of silverware against plates. And through it all, Owen remained by my side, his unwavering support a constant source of strength and inspiration. It was during a lull in the conversation that he gently cleared his throat, his eyes shining with a mixture of love and determination. "Leela," he began, his voice steady and assured, "from the moment we met, you've been an inspiration, a beacon of resilience and unwavering commitment to what truly matters in life." A hush fell over the table as he reached into his pocket, producing a small, velvet box. My breath caught in my throat as he lowered himself to one knee, the flickering candlelight dancing across his face. "You've shown me the true meaning of courage and perseverance, and I can't imagine walking this journey without you by my side. Lila, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The room seemed to fade away as I gazed into Owen's eyes, our shared history and the promise of a future together crystallizing in that single, pivotal moment. Tears of joy streaked down my cheeks as I nodded, rendered speechless by the depth of emotion swirling within me. A thunderous applause erupted, our friends and allies rising to their feet in a chorus of celebration. As Owen slipped the ring onto my finger, a symbolic gesture of our commitment, I knew that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one defined not by the shadows of the past, but by the radiant promise of a future built on love, trust, and the unwavering bond we shared. In that moment, I realized that the long, arduous journey had been worth it. Every heartache, every betrayal, every tear shed had led me to this point, this moment of profound joy and redemption. As I gazed around the table at the faces of those who had become my chosen family, I knew that the path ahead would be one of growth, healing, and the unbreakable bonds forged through shared experiences. And as for Mark and Elise, their names faded into the recesses of my mind, eclipsed by the overwhelming sense of gratitude and contentment that washed over me. For in the end, karma had indeed run its course, and I had emerged victorious, not through acts of vengeance or bitterness, but by embracing the power of forgiveness and letting go of the past that had once held me captive. As Owen's lips met mine in a tender kiss, I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with the promise of a future built on love, trust, and the unbreakable bonds that had sustained me through the darkest of times. And in that moment, I was truly blissfully free.